This is Photographing the West podcast, the podcast for people who love to explore the western highways and byways while photographing the landscape and wildlife. And now here's your host, Kirby Flanagan.
Hello, and welcome to episode number 67 of the Photographing the West podcast, brought to you by Photo Tees, wearable art designed by me using my photographs, available on Amazon and Etsy. Today, I'm happy to welcome back Steve Mattheis, I should say, wildlife photographer based in Jackson, Wyoming. Steve was last on Photographing the West in episode number 35, published on April 15, 2018. How's it going, Steve?
I'm doing great, Kirby. Thanks for having me back.
You're very welcome. So what's new with you since we talked last?
Oh boy, that's a big question. A lot's happened in the last almost year and a half, I guess. It's been quite a while.
Yeah.
But I've been doing a lot of teaching, instructing, workshops here in the Tetons. That's been going great. We've been having a great time with folks who come out here to visit and do photography and learn photography, and been making some beautiful images in my humble opinion. But it's been a great time.
Good. I see you've been putting out lots of blog posts now. How's that working for you?
Well, the vlog, it's really fun. So on YouTube, I make videos, and I try and mix them up a little bit. But as you mentioned, most of them are kind of that vlog style where I go out in the field and kind of document what it's like for me to be out doing photography. Whether it's here or whether I'm on the road, traveling, doing some photography. It's just kind of fun to put together a little 10 to 20 minute video and kind of show what it's like to be out there making photographs. And I generally try and incorporate some type of educational element into them as well. I certainly want them to be entertaining for people and inspirational too, really, to just kind of give people, because not everybody lives in a place like I do here in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where I have immediate access to Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Parks, and this is what I do for a living now. So I'm out there almost every day, and I realize not everybody can do that, and it's nice to for people to kind of be inspired and see what I'm doing. I mean, I watch other people's YouTube channels too to watch what they're doing and find some inspiration in what they're doing and trying new techniques and looking for new locations and new subjects to photograph and new techniques and all of those things. So that's a pretty, I'd say, an important part of what I'm trying to accomplish with my vlogs is that inspiration and certainly some education and definitely some entertainment value in there as well. So I'm really enjoying doing them, and people seem to enjoy them. Getting lots of really positive feedback from people. The channel's growing. I think that my subscriber count is, I don't know what it is. It's like 11,000 something at the moment.
12,000 something last time I looked.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, I should pay more attention, I guess. In YouTube land, that's a pretty mediocre thing. But in my head, it's crazy that many people are enjoying what I'm doing out there, and I'm proud of that. And I'm psyched every time I put out a video and I start getting good comments and people watching it and enjoying it. So it's been a pretty cool thing to get on that YouTube channel and put out a video and try and give something to people to inspire them and educate and entertain. It's a crazy world we live in where a guy from Wyoming with a camera can go do that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like you're doing well. It's from everything I've read, it's pretty hard to break into. So you've published a book, I think. Tell us all about that.
So the book, that was that was a project that took a while.
No doubt.
That's one of those that I've been working on for, I don't know, like 5 years or so. And it's finally done, and I'm feeling a sense of relief, but I'm also feeling a lot of excitement about it too. The book is called Phantom of the North, and it's a book about great gray owls. It's more than a book of my photography, which is awesome because, when I started doing photography here in the Tetons, I fell in love with this particular subject, and that's the great gray owl. And we have a local population of them here in the Tetons, and this is about their southernmost range in the U.S. And they migrate a little bit too during some years, but this is pretty much, as far south as they go. And we have a resident population, and I started seeing when I was early-ish in my photography, I started seeing other people photographs of great gray owls that they had been taking, and I was just fascinated by this bird. It looked so cool, and then I kind of made a mission to find one and photograph it myself. Took me a long time. I searched, once I decided I'm going to find a great gray owl and photograph it, I spent a lot of time looking, and it took me 8 months to find my first great gray owl. And once I found that, it was an obsession really started pretty quickly, to where I just kind of wanted to find more and photograph more and spend more time with them. I had no intention other than just I enjoyed it, and I thought they were just fascinating creatures. The more I watched them, the more I got to see their behaviors and see where they live. And it's just, they live in these amazing dark wooded areas, and they find these beautiful meadows to hunt in, and in the snow they hunt, and it's beautiful to be out there with them in the snow, and the snow's falling and it's just dead quiet, middle of winter, and it's just like this magical thing for me. And I'm sure a lot of other people would enjoy that too, but for whatever reason they just really struck a chord with me. After a period of a few years of photographing them, my catalog of images started getting pretty solid, where I was feeling really proud of them. And I started at that point considering, like, oh geez, maybe I've got enough good images here to put together in some kind of a book. And that kind of thought, I don't even remember when that thought process started, but at that point I started to, really look for specific images that I thought, a book would need an image of the owls in the nest, and I'd need images of the chicks and while they're in the nest, and then the chicks when they fledge before they can fly, and the image of, just all these things that I kept thinking of, like, oh, the book would need to have this image and that image. And so it really became a rabbit hole where I kind of almost had like a mental checklist of, well, if I'm going to put out a book, I need to have an image of this too. And it just kept going and going and going. And so I had to be out there with the owls trying to make those images. And it was great. I loved being out there. So after a period of time, I started collecting those images and getting, in my mind, the book started coming together, and it was getting pretty close. And then, over the years being out in the field, I'd kept running into a group of biologists. We have a local, it's called Teton Raptor Center, that there's a great gray owl study that's been happening in the valley for, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but like 8 years. The 3 biologists in particular I got to know in the field, Brian Bedrosian and Catherine Gura and Beth Mendelson. And they, I kept running into them out in the field, and we'd talk, and we became friends, and they were out studying a lot of the same owls that I was out photographing. We became friends, and I would contribute to their study when I'd see something interesting or find an owl that I thought they might find interesting, and I'd donate images to their nonprofit to use for their presentations and for marketing materials for them and stuff like that. And we just kind of formed a good working relationship together, and they started trusting me as a photographer who respected the owls and respected the environment and their process, and it became a good relationship. And as the book kind of kept progressing in my head, it was just strictly a book of photography. At some point, I was talking with the biologist, and I don't even remember how it happened, if they suggested it or I suggested it. I think it was one of those, having a beer after being out in the field together or something. And we started talking about collaborating on the book and having them write some text for the book. And it just immediately made sense. So we worked on that concept for a while before we came up with who was going to do the writing and what the text was going to be. And eventually we settled on Catherine was going to do the writing. And there was some concern amongst all of us, them being scientists, that the writing might become kind of textbookish and, maybe a little bit dry, scientific. And would you want to read a book like that, Kirby?
Probably not.
Well, exactly. That's kind of our thinking, was we wanted to make it a little more interesting than just textbookish. So anyway, Catherine took it upon herself to write the text, and she did a really great job of not making it, scientific, textbookish. And she really incorporated a lot of fun and interesting stories from the field of me doing photography in the field, and also some of their interesting stories from the field of them studying these birds and the cool things that we see out there in the dark woods, and incorporating some of their research, the interesting findings, and some of the interesting things, unique characters and properties of the birds. And so I think it turned out really great, her writing, and really proud of her and myself too for the book. It just turned out great. But the writing was a really positive addition to the book that I hadn't originally even conceived of when I started working on the book. But eventually we got it all put together. The book just got released in mid-July, so it's fresh. Just made it over through customs, and it took, of course, a lot longer than any of us expected to get it done, like every project. And we can talk some more about that if you'd like. But it's fresh now, just hot off the presses, and finally available and shipping out.
Good. So did you self-publish, or were you able to find a publisher? Or?
Well, that was a huge part of the project that I wasn't expecting to spend so much time working on. But we did end up, the short stories, we did end up self-publishing, but we enlisted the help of some pros. So we used is the wrong word, but we collaborated with a company up in Montana called Sweetgrass Publishing, I think. Sweetgrass Books. At any rate, I could get you that link, but if you just Googled Sweetgrass Books in Montana, they're a branch of a company that does traditional publishing. So I had contacted a bunch of traditional publishers, and across the board, the sentiment was, this book is amazing, the photography is great, the writing's great, but it's such a niche market that they didn't think they could sell as many as they needed to really make it worth their time and money.
Right.
Which I totally get. I mean, it doesn't get much more niche than a book about a single species of a kind of rare owl, but we're a bit more optimistic about that than they were, but that's because we're kind of bird nerds and photographers and stuff. So we're hoping that it'll do better than they thought it would. And at any rate, a bunch of publishers all kind of passed on it, and we ended up going with this company up in Montana. They have a traditional publishing company, but they have an arm of their company that basically helps out people just like me who have a book, a concept. I mean, at the time I contacted them, the book was complete, but it needed to be reformatted, rebuilt in the correct software for the printers. There's a lot more to it than just building the book and, laying out where the photos go and where the text goes and all that stuff. So they had to rebuild the whole book using, I don't know what software they used, probably Adobe InDesign or whatever they use for their professional stuff that they send to the printers. So they have editors, photo editors, they have all these people on staff, and it's kind of an a la carte program where I could pick which services I wanted help with and the design and layout. So we had them, they took my layout and they, luckily I had them, rebuild the layout for the book, and they also gave, suggestions and comments and made changes to the layout to make it work better and to make it look better. And so they were very helpful in that regard too. But then they have all the relationships with printers. So they looked at the book and the size. So it's a pretty big book, and I wanted it to be pretty high end in terms of quality and the printing quality and the paper quality and the coding quality and all that stuff. And so they looked at all that stuff, and I didn't know, like, oh, I want 157 GSM paper or whatever. But I kind of just relayed to them that I want this to be a high quality book, but I don't want it to be like a $200 book, but I want it to feel like a real high quality coffee table book. I want the photos to really be well printed, and have the coatings on them so that they last and they don't get too beat up, and just all those things that I was relaying to them. And they could translate that into exactly how that needed to be printed and which printer to use. And so they really made all that stuff happen, with kind of my thoughts and guidance. They knew all the technical stuff and had all the people in place to make all that happen. So of course that all costs money, but man, it saved a lot of time, and it really made a huge positive impact on the book to really make it a professional level book versus, something I could just ship it over to Blurb and have them print out 100 copies and show up on my door in a week or two. This was a long process, and it cost a lot of money, but I think it really made a big difference in getting the book the way we wanted it to be presented. So we are the publisher, Catherine and I. The company, the Sweetgrass Books company, they did a lot of that, the work that a publisher would normally do to get it actually printed and finalized, get the layout done and get it printed and shipped over here, so I could get it out. And then I'm responsible now for all of the sales and distribution as well. That's another a la carte service that they would provide. So they could do fulfillment, and they could do some sales and marketing and stuff as well. And of course, that all costs money, but we're pretty confident that we'll be able to get the book to the bookstores that we want to get it into and be able to sell it through our own channels and stuff like that. So that's an a la carte service that we didn't select, but they would provide that if we wanted them to.
That's an interesting approach, that they'll let you do various things a la carte. I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
Yeah, I hadn't either. And it turned out to be the perfect thing for us. And well, it's certainly not the perfect thing for everybody. I don't know. I don't even remember the process of how we found them and how that all came together as well. But I'm glad it did come together, because it turned out to be exactly what we needed, and everything has turned out just great.
So where can everybody find the book, and how much does it cost?
So the book right now, as I mentioned, it just came out, or we just got them. They came out of customs in early July, and we got them here in mid-July, and then we shipped. So I guess I didn't mention yet, we did a Kickstarter campaign on this back in January, December. I think it was in December through January. We did a Kickstarter campaign to help fund it, because it's a big chunk of money to order a pile of books, and we kickstarted it, and we raised enough money to be able to help us with all the printing costs and all that kind of stuff. And so we had hundreds of orders that we needed to get shipped out right away. And so that was a whole nother process in itself. Once those books arrived, we had to get them. I don't remember how many pounds of books it was, but it was tons of books that we had to get into our location and get set up, and kind of Catherine and I just had a big book signing session where we signed all the books, and well, at least the hundreds that were going out immediately to the pre-orders on Kickstarter. So we had to sign them all and box them all, and then get labels on them all and addresses, and get them all to the post office. And that was a huge push, a big project. We did it as quickly as we could because we were a little bit behind. Well, we were a lot behind schedule by the time everything worked out. We were a couple of months later than we had hoped we would be getting the books to people. But yeah, so we got those all sent out to the Kickstarters. So that's all done now, and we're just now kind of catching our breath and going to start doing some more sales. So we have I've been out just to a couple of local places, so they're available in some local bookstores here. They're not available on Amazon yet. We'll get to them eventually, assuming we can make the pricing work, which I think we can. But right now, the best place, if you're not local here in Jackson, is to go to my website. They're available there. They're $49.95 plus $5 shipping, and we're only shipping within the United States. We've kind of learned a lesson there on Kickstarter that we did international shipping, and we misjudged how expensive it is to ship internationally a book. So we need to figure out a better way to deal with international orders. And so unfortunately, internationally is a work in progress. And we hope to figure something out there soon. But my website is stevemattheis.com, and it's spelled funny. It's Steve, MATTHEIS.com, and they're available to ship immediately there. So we're psyched to be getting these books out to people.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Well, it was. Getting all the images together was, like 5 or 6 years of work, and then putting the book together was about a year of work, and then getting once we had the publisher, the printer, the self-publish helper. I don't know what we'd call them. What would you call that Sweetgrass company?
No idea.
I don't know either, but a self-publishing helper company. Anyway, once they were on board, there was a ton of work there too, with collaborating with them and getting the layout done just right, and getting paper samples approved, and printing samples approved, and coating samples approved, and the dust jacket, paper and printing and coating approved. And all of those things required a lot of back and forth between us in Montana and them and the printer. And so it was a lot of back and forth and approvals and disapprovals and trying this and trying that and on and on and on. And then it was then it was a waiting game. And then it was a big push there to get, those hundreds of books signed and boxed. And we did all that ourselves, which, there's pros and cons to doing it that way, but it's a lot of work, but it's also us being in control of the process. And so I'm glad we've done it the way we did, but man, yeah, I think it's like a lot of projects where if you knew how much work it was going to be when you started, you would have never started. But
I'm sure.
Yeah, but you get so far down the path that you just can't quit, and you just keep pushing through the work and the time and the effort and the money, and then now that we're done with the work, it's all like, oh, thank God we did that. But man, that was a lot of work. So, and now we have the work of selling, trying to sell them all, so we don't end up with, a big pile of books sitting there for the next 20 years, wondering what we're going to do with them all. But I think we'll be we'll be able to move through the books, and because they turned out so good, and we're just really proud of them. And when you're proud of something like that, you're generally going to do a pretty good sales pitch to people. And so that's what we're hoping, is that we're real authentic in our belief in the book being a great product for people. And the feedback from all the pre-orders who have gotten them has been just overwhelmingly positive, and just humbling. And I'm just grateful that people are loving it so much and have been so supportive of the project and the photography and the writing and everything about it.
Good. So you mentioned customs a couple of times. Where'd you actually have it published?
Well, they got printed in China, and I couldn't even tell you where, what factory or anything. And I'm glad I can't, because that's what that company does. They have a bunch of different printers that, depending on the size of the book, and some places can only print certain sizes, and some will do custom. We made this one a nice square 12 by 12 inch book. So it's a pretty big book, and so some printers can't do it, and some can. And then it was a whole process of trying to find the right fit, and they really ran the show on finding the right fit. And then, of course, budget wise, using a domestic printer, it's like so many things right now, where this would be $100 book if we printed it here in the US, and it's a $50 book because we printed it offshore.
Right.
And there's obviously a lot politically going on with that right now, that I certainly don't want to get involved in that conversation. But we really wanted the book to be accessible to most people, and we kind of felt like, through our research and market research and advice of the publishers that we had talked to, it really needed to be a book at $49.95. And so we were able to accomplish that, but the only way we could accomplish that was to go offshore for the printing. And most people are doing that just because there's price pressure to do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's commonly done these days. So I don't know if it's commonly known, but certainly people I've talked to that self-published or even used a publisher, it still ended up being published in China because of cost.
Yep.
Okay, well, changing gears a little bit, you also have an African safari starting up here in the not too distant future. Tell us about that. What are the details? How is it different from other African safaris?
Well, the Africa safari is a dream of every photographer, right?
Right.
And, including me. And this is going to sound a little funny, but I have not been to Africa yet. And so this will be my first trip to Africa. I'm going as a co-leader. So my role there will be whatever it wants to be, but mostly as an instructor. I'm going to be there to help people make fantastic photos. Of course, I'll be there, to have a great time and be available for whatever anybody needs. But the reason I'm going as a co-leader is, obviously I haven't been there before, so I would definitely not feel comfortable leading a trip like that by myself, having never been there. That would seem a little, what the word would be there, a little pompous. But this trip came together kind of serendipitously with my co-leader. She has tons of experience in Africa and in leading photography workshops around the world. So she's really kind of the driving force behind this trip. And I'm going with her, but I'm also going to be there to work and to be with the clients as an instructor and as somebody who can be there to help them get better and to make better images. Because while I haven't been to Africa, I've done dozens and dozens and dozens of workshops, and I'm a really good instructor. I mean, that sounds kind of pompous too, but I work with enough people of all different skill levels and all different backgrounds and stuff all the time, that I've really, I think, been able to hone that part of my my skill set to be able to teach people really well and try and simplify concepts and help people understand their cameras better technically and also artistically, help them try and visualize what type of photos they want to be making, and then to make that happen using specific gear or the gear they've got. And so I'm going with Sue Cedarholm is kind of the real leader. She put the trip together, and so she organized everything with the planning. She's done this exact trip the last 7 years in a row, staying. So she knows all these lodges. She knows all the guides. She knows the areas and the wildlife and all that stuff. She has gone historically with another photographer who is a big name, like internationally recognized wildlife and nature photographer. I can't use his name, obviously, in promoting this trip for us because he's not involved in it anymore, but he's doing less traveling. And my understanding is that this was too big of a trip for him to want to do this year. And so she and I got together, and I'm going to be there as kind of the primary teacher, and she's going to be running the trip and making sure all the logistics are taken care of and everything goes smoothly. And I'll be there to make sure all the photography is happening and people are getting the images that they want, that they're all learning and getting better and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of the perfect, like I couldn't have asked for a better situation for myself to be going to Africa, because I love teaching, and obviously I'm going to go there and try and make some great images myself and get experience there and all that stuff. It's going to be just a fantastic trip for all of us. So yeah, I'm couldn't be more excited about going to Africa. And everybody that's been says, oh boy, watch out. Once you get the Africa bug, it's gonna suck you in, and you're gonna end up going there every year or twice a year. And it's one of those places that once it gets under your skin, you want to keep going back.
Yeah, I've heard that too. So what part of Africa are you going to, and what's the emphasis as far as wildlife?
Well, we're going to a handful of places. So it's a 16-day trip. And in that 16 days, we're going to hit 5 different parks. So we're going to do 3 nights in Amboseli in Kenya. We're going to do 3 nights at Tarangire in Tanzania, 3 nights at the Ngorongoro Crater, 3 nights at the Ndutu Lake area, and then 3 nights in Serengeti National Park. So we're going to hit a bunch of different places that are, all different and all going to offer different things. It's just going to kind of be the classic safari where we're going to do elephants and cats and landscapes and giraffes and zebras and all that stuff. It's a pretty long trip, would be in 16 days, but it's a long ways to travel. And so we wanted to do something longer than just a week, travel that far just for a week. So we're going to do a little over 2 weeks and hit a bunch of parks and really have a diverse set of wildlife and landscapes and stuff to work through. And yeah, it's pretty darn exciting.
Yeah, can understand that. So are you driving from place to place or bush plane or what?
It's going to be mostly driving. There's only one bush plane trip, and that's at the end of the trip to get back to Nairobi, where we'll fly back home from Nairobi. But yeah, so we'll be traveling by a vehicle. The travel days themselves, the times that we're traveling will be different. When we're out on game drives, the safari vehicles, we're gonna have a total of 12 people on the trip, and we're gonna have four people or four safari vehicles with us. So we're going to have plenty of room. Each person's going to get their own row in the safari vehicle. So there's only going to be three participants per vehicle. So you'll have your own row so you can shoot out both sides of the safari vehicle. There won't be somebody in your way blocking your shot. You'll have plenty of room. So you can bring as much or as little gear as you want. Like I'm going to bring my 600 and my 100 to 400 and, wide angle at 24 to 70. So I'm going to bring it all so I can shoot whatever I want. And I'll have plenty of room in the vehicle there with me to shoot and not feel like I'm going to miss some shots because I didn't have enough space to bring along my 600 that day, or, there's somebody in my way because I'm on the left side of the vehicle or whatever. So it's really set up specifically for photography on this trip.
Yeah, that's great. So when is this and what does it cost?
So this one is happening in February, and we're doing an early bird special at the moment to save $500 on the trip if you sign up by the end of September. With the $500 discount right now, the trip's going to be $15,795, and then it'll go up $500 at the end of September. So there's about a month left to get that early bird discount. Yeah, it's what are the exact dates? I don't even remember what the first day is. February 3rd is arrival into Nairobi. Well, I'll get there. We'll get there before that, but February 3rd is the official first day in Nairobi, where we'll do meet and greet, and then we'll have some opportunities to go to the Elephant Center or a bead factory or the Giraffe Center. There'll be some opportunities to do some things in Nairobi before we head out to Amboseli the next day on February 4th. So it's the 3rd through the 19th of February coming up.
Yeah. So what gear and clothing are you taking?
Oh boy, that we could talk about that all day, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be a balancing act of how much stuff to bring, just to the pain of traveling with so much gear. But I'm going to bring quite a kit of photography gear. I'm a Nikon shooter for the most part, so I'm going to bring my full set of Nikon gear. I shoot with a pair of D850s, so I'll be bringing those, and I also shoot with a Z7, which is a great camera for certain things and not great for others, but I'll use that to shoot some video, and then also as a non-action focus tracking camera as well. That's what I think its big limitation is the focus tracking. But I love using that camera, and I'm definitely going to bring it. I want to have a camera on as many lenses as I can out there, because changing lenses in the dusty environment, we want to minimize that as much as we can out there in the field. But so I'm going to have those 3 Nikon bodies, and then my lens selection will range from 14 millimeters out to 600 millimeters. So I should have everything covered out there. But I'm also bringing a Fuji GFX medium format system as well. There's no big long telephoto lenses there, but I definitely am going to bring that system. I love the images that GFX system makes. Have you ever used that GFX system?
No, I haven't. I've read about it and drilled over it, but no.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet, and I enjoy using it, and the image quality from it is the best out of any system I've used. It's definitely noticeably better than even the Nikon D850, and I'm not sure honestly how much it has to do with the lenses versus the sensor. I think it's probably a combination of both, but I really like using that system. And for some of the wider angle environmental, animals in the environment, landscapey type stuff, the D850 is fantastic. I have the option to use that GFX system because I own it, and I'm definitely bringing it to Africa. So I'm going to have that on board with me as well. And I'm also going to bring a infrared converted GFX with me. I love doing black and white infrared work. And so I'm going to have that an infrared GFX 50R with me as well to do some really high contrast infrared black and white stuff while I'm there. So I'm going to be totally overloaded on the gear. I could go on and on and on about that forever if we wanted, but I probably shouldn't ramble on too much more about that, should I?
Probably not. And who's going to carry all that stuff?
Well, I've been working out. I've been trying to stay in shape, so I'm planning on hauling it all myself. We'll see how I do, but
okay.
Yeah.
How are you going to get it on the airplane?
Well, that's going to be a trick. Well, I'll definitely have to bring. I'll definitely have to pack. I'll put as much as I can. Like, I'm going to have to kind of triage the most expensive and the most important stuff to bring with me as carry-on. But then I'll do a hard-sided, a big heavy-duty Pelican case that I'll pack all the remaining gear into and just kind of cross my fingers and hope for the best and make sure it's all insured and all that. But it's definitely some thoughts got to go into what exactly, like, the 600 has to travel with me and one body for sure. I don't know. Well, I'll have to triage that when I actually get it packed into my bags, but it's going to be a tough decision to put some of it in the belly of the plane, but I'm going to have to. So I'll figure that out when the time actually comes and I need to actually do it.
Yeah, tough decision, and for sure.
Yeah.
What preparations do you recommend for people who are going on your trip?
We have a whole, when you sign up for the trip, we have a bunch of documentation and some reminder emails letting you know when you need to, what you need to bring and when you need to, like, there's immunizations that you want to get. We will have some recommendations on when to go to your doctor for those immunizations and what to ask for. You want a hepatitis and typhoid and tetanus and malaria pills and some things like that everybody, I think, going there does. And so we have all those recommendations in some emails that we'll send you if you sign up for the trip, and also gear recommendations. Certainly happy to talk to people in person about what they have and what they should bring, or what maybe they want to rent if they don't have all the equipment that they need, what to rent and how to rent it and all that kind of stuff. Tripods versus bean bags, and shooting from the vehicle quite a bit. Bean bags are going to be more important than a tripod on this particular trip. So there's travel insurance. We're certainly here to help out with all that stuff. And as I mentioned, Sue has done this trip so many times. She's got a really good handle and a really good complete set of instructions that we give to everybody to make sure everybody's totally prepared with all the stuff they need, from the cables that you need to be able to charge your batteries, and having some extra little power packs with you in case your stuff is dying out in the safari vehicle, and extra batteries and backup storage and all that stuff. She has all that stuff documented really well, so people are feeling confident while they're packing that they're going to have everything that they need.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, tell everybody again where to find you and all the things you're doing, and where to find information about the book and the safari.
Yeah, great. So the main hub there is going to be my website, and that's stevemattheis.com, SteveMattheis. It's spelled funny. So stevemattheis.com is all of the kind of commercial stuff that I'm doing with the workshops. So the Africa workshop is the big one coming up in February. I also have a Yellowstone winter workshop coming up in January that I haven't even announced yet on my website, but that'll be happening in the next week. That will be publicly announced. So appreciate the plug here on that too. Thanks, Kirby.
Sure.
And then just my typical kind of workshop business here in the Tetons, where I do private workshops for people, a morning or an all day or multiple days. They're totally customizable and totally private. We work on whatever you want to work on when you come here to the Tetons or into Yellowstone. All that information is available there. The book is available there to purchase. And you can find me on Instagram, Steve Mattheis, and I'm pretty active on there. I try and post a handful of images every week, and I try and have some fun with those and be a little more playful. And then, of course, my YouTube channel as well. I'm Steve Mattheis on YouTube. And there I'm trying to do like a video every week, typically vlog style, but I do some gear review type stuff where people get angry at me, or the gear review videos are classic. They get a ton of views, but man, people really get worked up about gear, and they always tell you that you're an idiot and that you're wrong, or that you're the best and that you're right. And it's across the board on all those gear related videos on YouTube. So come join me on YouTube, and visit the website if you're interested in any of those, the book or the workshops. Thanks again for the plugs there, Kirby. I appreciate those, but I love just hearing from people on YouTube that I helped them learn something new in their photography, or I gave them some inspiration to get out and go for a walk and look for owls, or go for a drive and look for a new place to do some photography or whatever. I just I enjoy hearing from people, and enjoy hearing that they're getting something from the YouTube channel.
Great. So thanks for being on the show again, Steve. Good luck with all your new ventures. Sounds like you're going to be a busier guy, even more so than you are now. So show notes, as usual, can be found at www.flanaganphotos, spelled FLANAGANPHOTOS.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Thanks, Kirby. Yep, great to talk with you today.
Same here, Steve. Always fun.
Thanks for listening to Photographing the West podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast in iTunes and leave us a review. Till next time, here's wishing you safe travels and good light.